So here, before going to the Azure DevOps, cloud computing and DevOps, you must have the knowledge on what? SDLC methodology. Is it clear? So what is SDLC? Software Development Lifecycle. SDLC is a methodology. It is an approach which is used to develop the software application successfully. If you want to construct a building, you cannot blindly construct if you have the raw materials or resources. You have to follow a proper planning. By following that proper planning only, you can construct the building actually. Similarly, in software industry also, if you want to develop a successful applications, you have to follow this SDLC model. SDLC methodology. Is it clear? It is a process that will be followed by all the companies to develop the applications fastly and efficiently. The different levels that are available in SDLC are requirement gathering, designing, development, testing, deployment, as well as maintenance. In order to deploy the applications, here we are using the DevOps. In order to provide the infrastructure platform, we will use what? Cloud computing. So what are the concepts we'll try to cover in Azure DevOps means? In Azure DevOps, we'll try to focus on Azure Repos, as well as Azure Service Bus, as well as Azure Functions. Azure Functions we'll try to cover, as well as Azure Blob Storage we'll try to cover. Apart from this, we'll try to cover Azure App Services. We'll try to cover. Apart from this, Azure Boards. Apart from this, Azure Account Storage. Apart from this, we'll try to cover ACA, Azure Container Apps. Azure Container Apps we'll try to cover. ACR, Azure Container Registry. Azure Container Registry. And we'll try to cover work with Azure resource groups. And we'll try to work with Azure regions. Is all we'll try to cover. And Azure in the point of .NET developer point of view. So in order to work with Azure, you need to first create the Azure account. What is required to create an Azure account? Credit card is mandatory. Credit card or debit card, that is required. And apart from that, you must have the knowledge on the subscription Azure subscription is required actually. These are the topics what we'll try to cover, Azure subscriptions. Are you following everyone? Yes or no? My voice is clear, everyone?
Yes, sir, clear.
So
Sir, Cosmos will not cover.
Sorry?
Cosmos.
Cosmos. That will come in the Azure account storage account.
Okay.
Here you'll have Azure storage account you can consider actually. Here we'll discuss with about databases. So you can get the servers actually. And here some of the concepts that are required. Azure virtual machines, that is not required for us. AKS, that is also there. One more. AKS means Azure Kubernetes Services. Azure Kubernetes Services. And here you can work with Terraform. Is it clear? These are the main concepts that are available before working with our Azure. Is it clear? Service bus I written, na? Azure Service Bus is there, Azure Functions is there, Azure Pipeline, very, very important. Azure Pipeline to perform CI/CD operations. Is it clear? So these are the different concepts that we can use Azure for different reasons. One is developer must have the knowledge on Azure. So developer point of view is different. And DevOps engineer must have the knowledge on Azure. And Azure data engineer. Azure Data Factory, ADF. Is it clear? So that is different actually. But here the main point is we are a developer now. We are learning Azure in the point of developer as well as DevOps engineer. Azure Data Engineer, Azure Data Factory, that is separate story. So these are the main points here. So definitely in Azure Repos, we'll try to focus on GitHub and the CI/CD integrations. That also I can write here. CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous delivery. Azure Service Bus main purpose is to transfer the data. Transfer data between microservices. Whenever we want to work with microservices, we have to transfer the data in the form of queues or in the form of topics. That is Azure Service Bus. Azure functions are nothing but serverless functions. Serverless functions. This is also a very important topic. Generally, in olden days, if your function is a small piece of code which is used to perform a particular task, and these functions we have to deploy on where server, and this function will run 24/7. But what is the purpose of Azure functions means pay as you go. For example, when you click the button, is it clear? The request will go to the server, this function will execute and it will generate the response. But what is the beautiness of, but this function will be 24/7, it must be in running mode only. But what is the beautiness of Azure function? When user hit the button, this function will start running. When the function perform the task, that function will stop running. That is the beautiness actually. It is very, in AWS, we'll call this one as lambda expressions. Lambdas. In Azure, we'll call as Azure function. Azure blob storage. This is also very important. Purpose of Azure blob storage is used to store images or files or videos, large amount of data, binary large object data. That is blob storage. Azure App Services. What is the purpose of Azure App Services? For deployment of the application. You develop one web application, you have to keep that application on the server. So you have to create the Azure App Services. Are you following everyone?
Yes, sir.
So these all, every DevOps means DevOps will always deal with the deployment. Cloud will always provide the infrastructure. Is it clear? Azure Repos is used for what purpose? Version control system. If you want to code management, repository tool. Multiple developers will work under a single repository. That is version control system. The main purpose of Azure Repos is to store and manage the code. Store and manage code. Azure Service Bus main purpose is to transfer the data between the microservices. For example, this is one microservice, this is another microservice. And this microservice is deployed in one server. This microservice deployed in another server. Between these two servers, here you have a network will be there. Generally, we cannot transfer data via network. That is the reason we use a concept called, and we cannot directly transfer the data objects via network. So we have to convert this object into stream of bytes, either XML or JSON. That concept is called as serialization. And the reverse proxy, converting a stream of bytes into object, that concept is called as deserialization. Serialization and deserialization. So how to transfer the data between multiple microservices via network means, generally in Azure we have a concept called queue as well as topic. Very beautiful concept, that one. That anyway we'll discuss in future. If you want to transfer the data between the services like order system, payment, notification, multiple microservices, then we'll use this Azure Service Bus. And then Azure functions are serverless computing, serverless functions. Is it clear? The function will execute how much money you have to pay. When the function is executing, for that particular time period only, we have to pay the money. Azure blob storage is used to store the large amount of files. Is it clear? Images, etc. Azure App Service you can consider as a hosting platform. Azure is very easy actually, developer friendly comparing with AWS. Always Microsoft products are developer friendly. If you want to deploy the web applications, in order to deploy web applications, APIs, we have to use what? Azure services. And Azure boards are used for Agile planning tool. You can simply call as Agile planning tool. If you want to project PMT tool, project management tool, generally like Jira you have. Is it clear? Task management tool, creating the bugs, sprints, stories, track development progress. These all will use the Azure boards. Azure storage account main purpose is used to, if you want to work with SQL server, or if you want to work with file storage, or if you want to work with Cosmo DB. I told you know what are the main beautiness of Azure. Anyone can tell? Number one, scalability will be there. Number two, pay as you go will be there. Number three, serverless will be there. Serverless will be there. This is the main advantages actually. Any service you can use in Azure, every service will use what? Pay as you go. Are you following everyone? And you have a serverless feature will be there. And a data recovery feature will be there. CI/CD will be there. Continuous integration, continuous delivery. Here's the main advantages actually. And another purpose is Azure Container Registry, ACR. Azure Container Registry. Azure Container Apps actually. The main beautiness of, the main purpose of Azure Containers is to run the containers without Kubernetes. In olden days, we used Kubernetes to run the container. What is a container actually? For example, developer will write the code. In order to run the developer main job is to develop the application. And in order to run the application, what is required? Some dependencies are required and some runtime environment is required and some third-party libraries are required. Lot of stuff is required. Then only the application will run. So, in olden days, we need to deploy this particular total code into the server, which is a tedious process. And we cannot deploy the total source code into the application. What is an application, all of you? What is an application? Anyone can tell? Can you hear my voice? Hello, my voice is clear?
Yes, sir.
Application is collection of what?
What is tools?
Files. Application is collection of what? Files. That application consists of code files, configuration files, data files, a lot of files will be there. Design files, etc. So this entire code, whatever you have written, that is called as source code. We cannot directly deploy the source code into the server. Server cannot recognize this source code. So what we have to do, we have to convert this source code into the runnable code. We have to convert the source code into the runnable code. That process is called as build. So what is build means? Build is the process of converting the source code into the runnable code. Is it clear? A runnable code is nothing but .jar file or a .var file or a .dll files or .sln files. These all are called as runnable codes. Server cannot directly execute the source code actually. So we need to convert the source code into the runnable code. In olden days, in order to do that one, we have to do the manual stuff we have to do, converting the source code into the runnable code. So DevOps has given a flexibility to automate the build process. So in order to run this code, containers are introduced in the market. That anyway we'll discuss in future. In order to create the containers, we must have the knowledge on Docker actually. So in order to run the containers, Kubernetes is required actually. But Azure DevOps has given a flexibility. Without Kubernetes, you can directly run the containers by introducing ACA, Azure Container Apps. So Azure Container Registry, it is used to store the Docker images. If you want to store the Docker images, then we have to use what? Azure Container Registry. It is like a private Docker hub. Is it clear? So what is the difference between Kubernetes and ACR and ACA? Anyone can tell? What is the difference between Azure Container Registry and Azure Container Apps? Anyone can speak? Hello? My voice is clear, everyone?
Container register.
What is the difference between Azure Container Apps and Azure Container Registry?
Apps are published.
Azure Container Registry is used to store the Docker images. Azure Container Apps is used to run the containers without Kubernetes. If you want to run the containers outside the Kubernetes, you have to use what? Outside the Azure platform, you have to use Kubernetes. ACA, ACR. I am connecting the dots actually. Why we are learning? What are the services that are provided by Azure? In Azure, you have Azure Repos is there, Azure Service Bus is there, Azure Functions is there, Azure Blob Storage is there, Azure App Services is there, Azure Boards will be there, Azure Storage Account, Azure Container Apps to run the containers. Azure Container Registry is like a refrigerator. In your refrigerator, you will store all the vegetables and ingredients, but you will not use it. Whenever you want to cook the food, then only you will use the ingredients. So all the containers that are available, all the Docker images will try to store in where? That ACR. And whatever the Docker images that are available in ACR, that will be run by ACA, Azure Container Apps. So what is Docker, all of you? Anyone have the knowledge on Docker? I'll write here if you want. I'm explaining all the characters actually. So what is Docker? Docker is a containerization platform. Docker is a containerization platform. It helps to pack. Is it clear? It helps to pack application along with dependencies. See, what is the beautiness here? I will explain in a simple manner to understand about Docker. For example, in olden days, you buy one laptop. You buy one computer or desktop or laptop you purchased. So now what is now this when you buy a laptop, you'll get only the physical laptop they will give. Now, apart from this, what you have to do, you need to install the operating systems, you need to install the drivers, you need to install the antivirus, you need to set up your laptop actually. When you purchase a laptop, you'll get the physical device that which is not ready to use. Again, if you have to make that laptop to ready made to use means again you have to go to some shop. Only you'll get the laptop with hardware. And again, you need to install all the softwares, operating systems, drivers, antivirus, and Java related softwares. You need to install databases. Is it clear? So we have to make this system ready actually. For example, multiple developers are working in a company. One developer want to use Windows operating system. One developer want to use Java. One developer will use database and other third-party dependencies, whatever it may be. And another developer want to use Linux. Another he want to work with .NET, SQL Server. So networking team will be there. Their main job is to make the system ready. So nearly 10 CDs are required to install all the softwares and make the laptop ready. But now what happened? When Docker came into the picture, what happened? Docker, what it will do, you don't need to install individual softwares. You need to pack all these things and create one Docker image. Now, just double click the Docker image, your laptop will be ready actually. You don't need to, you can create virtual machines. Did you understand? This is for the networking point of view. But developer point of view, what is happening? When you develop any web application, your total application depends on multiple microservices. And you developed this microservice with Java and you are using, you want to deploy in Linux operating system and some third-party dependencies that are required to run this microservice. Some dependencies that are required. Dependency means what? If you want to use WhatsApp, what is the dependency? If you want to use WhatsApp in your mobile, what is the dependency that is required? Anyone can tell?
Android or iOS.
Speak loud.
Android and iOS. And then WhatsApp.
First what? I am not unable to hear your voice. Can you speak loud?
Android and iOS.
Android is okay. That is okay. Android, iOS, OS will be there. I am asking general. Yeah, that is also okay. Any other more? Yeah, Android operating system is required. And
APK file.
Internet.
internet is required. Very good. Is it clear? So, lot of dependencies that are required to run the applications because applications cannot run independently. Similarly, if you want to run your application also in, for example, if you want in .NET, if you want to work with ADO.NET, if you want to work with Entity Framework, or if you want to work with Entity Framework Core, or if you want to work with Web API or any other stuff, you need to install some dependencies that are required from Nugget Package Manager, NPM. And Java people, they will use Maven or they will use Gradle. Dependency management tool. So, in order to make your application to run on server, you need to pack the application. Pack the application means, what's the meaning of packing? Packing means your code plus your dependencies, runtime environment, libraries, everything you have to pack as a Docker file. And this Docker, all the Docker images you have to store in where? ACR. And then you have to run the Docker images from your ACA. Did you understood? So here I will draw a simple diagram. Developer will develop the code and developer will create a Docker file. And developer will keep this Docker file in ACR. And whatever the Docker files that are available in ACR, we need to run the Docker images by ACA, Azure Container Apps. Then what is created? Containers are created actually. That anyway I will discuss. I am showing you the trailer. In future I will explain about each and every character. Are you following everyone? Yes or no?
Yes, sir. Sir, Azure VMs will also be considered included.
Can you speak loud?
Azure VMs.
Virtual machines, yes. That is separate actually. Virtual machine is nothing but what one computer will work like multiple machines.
Yeah,
It is something like virtual computer in the cloud.
that is also included in this curriculum.
Yeah, we'll try to cover, but that is related to pure infrastructure related. Na? I will explain you. We need to create the virtual machine. We need to choose the, yeah, definitely we have to create that one. Before deploying of the, hosting the microservices in your app services, we need to create a VM and we need to choose the OS, which OS you want to use. And you need to assign a CPU, RAM, and then we need to install the software, run the application. But these all are very easy when you compare with AWS. Because user friendly will be there, GUI nature will be there here. That is the main advantage. And then Azure resource groups. What is Azure resource groups? Main purpose is to, it is a logical grouping of resource. So what is a resource? What is a resource in Azure? Resource is nothing but the service that was provided by Azure. That is called as resource. If you want to create a database, if you want to create a blob, if you want to create a Azure function, if you want to create a app service, if you want to create anything in your Azure DevOps platform, then that is called as a resource actually. It is like a folder which consists of subfolders. So first, if you want to use any services that are provided by Azure, first you have to create a subscription account and then you have to create the resource groups. And then only you can use the Azure services. Application, database, storage. Did you understand? Whatever you want to do, everything is considered as a resource in Azure. Next, you must have the knowledge on Azure regions. These are very, very important. Azure regions are nothing but data center locations. Is it clear? For example, your application is deployed on the server. Where that server is located, whether it is in India or Canada or US or Europe, you need to select that particular data center locations. You need to choose the nearest region. For example, if you take Google, Google is launching one data center in Andhra Pradesh, Vizag. Is it clear? Now, YouTube, the total world will access that particular applications. But how the servers must respond, where the servers are located, all the servers will not locate in same place. All the Indian requests will divert to the nearest server. If any server crash or any effect is there, it will navigate to the other locations. So in Azure, you have regions will be provided. You need to select in which region you need to run your particular services. Did you understand, everyone? Azure subscriptions will deal about what? Billing and access boundary. So pay as you go, we told na, how much bill it will cost. Is it clear? Pay as you go. How much server space you used. Everything belongs to the subscription. Initially, 1 month's free subscription you'll get. You have to create an Azure portal account, and then we need to create the account by using credit card or debit card. Once when you create, you have to start practicing. Otherwise, within 1 month, your account will expire. So Azure Kubernetes services, main AKS, it is used to manage the Kubernetes. It is used to orchestration containers. So there is a beautiness will be there in this Azure, that is scalability will be there. Orchestration means what? If any, that is scalability is there, but if any server is suddenly stopped, again it will automatically restart that particular service without any server issues or any fails. That is the high scalability will be there. Large scale microservices when we try to use, we have to use this AKS. And then Terraform. Did you understand? Terraform is used to create the virtual machines and database using scripts. That is also important actually. And Azure Pipeline. Azure Pipeline is used to build as well as test, as well as deploy the code. This is also important. It is a part of Azure DevOps. And here by using Azure Pipeline, when you push the code, it will auto deploy. It will automatically deploy. That is Azure Pipeline. And then CI/CD. CI/CD is nothing but continuous integration, continuous deployment. CI/CD main purpose is code will merge frequently. And it will automate the test cases. Automate test cases. CI. CI is nothing but continuous integration. Continuous, because a lot of code changes will be there now in application development. Then it will automatically merge the code frequently and automate the test cases. CD means continuous deployment or continuous delivery. Continuous deployment. In this one, automate the deployment process. These both the things will be done simultaneously. When you do any code modifications, then the code will merge frequently, automate, test, and then automatically deploy. That is the main beautiness actually. So these are the main characters that are available in our Azure DevOps, what we'll try to cover. Are you following? So here you must have the knowledge on Jenkins also internally. Jenkins are also used for the CI/CD. And another one is Azure load balancing actually. Just some concepts you must have the knowledge. Load balancing is used to distribute the traffic. And it will maintain the availability of the resources that are provided. So these are the main concepts that we'll try to cover. API gateway I have written, yeah. Are you following? Azure boards, Docker, ACR, AKS. This all we'll try to cover in our syllabus. Please share your contact numbers, all of you, in the chat box.